Koto whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. I believe it is Thursday, which means I'm pre-recording this and trying to figure it out in real time, which means next Monday we're back live. Magenta and Emily taking you through the first week, then me and Chewie are back in the second week. But live again from next week. I'm really looking forward to getting back to it. I'm only halfway through my break as I record this. I'm having a really nice break, but I am already starting to get itchy feet to get back into it, especially with the first part of the year with Ratana and then Waitangi Day. And remember, I will be at Waitangi on Waitangi Day, so I'm sure I'll do something via distance with the team back in the studios. So tonight on the show, there's a really weird conversation that John Key had about how good Donald Trump was. There's a specific thing he said about it was about employment and how employment was pretty good under Donald Trump, whereas the stats show Donald Trump is literally the worst president there has ever been with employment. So either John Key is a flat out liar or he's ignorant to the truth. And if you're ignorant to the truth, why the hell are you offering it as an opinion? So we'll have a look at a conversation John Key had over Donald Trump and his quote-unquote success, and then we'll break it down for you and show you what the actual truth is. Also, Christopher Luxon was tone deaf this year because it was a day that ended in a Y when he was tone deaf, meaning every day. On Dunedin, talking floods in hospitals, and obviously that's a bit of a topic that we find we hold pretty close to our hearts here in Dunedin. We'll have a look at that. Also, we had a bit of a conversation once MediaWorks was showing signs of being in trouble. And then there was more job cuts that came through MediaWorks. And it is because, in general, the mainstream media doesn't know how to broadcast in 2024. Well, that's because it was from a 2024 story. And there's kind of this weird place where there's this Venn diagram where people like us, who obviously sit on the left and are independent, do have a crossover with those conspiracy theorists, right-wingers, who echo Donald Trump's points about the mainstream media failing. Because I actually agree that the mainstream media is failing, but we may disagree on why. They just think public money, blah, 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 blah. Whereas I think, and we talk about it in tonight's show, I think it's because mainstream media does not know how to broadcast in 2024. And this show here is an example of that. What we're doing is unique in New Zealand at the time of recording, unless some upstarters started up a new one in their own time. And the way we're doing it is the way it's being done internationally. And I have had, and I've said this before, I've never identified who it was, but a very, very senior person in a mainstream media company, one of the big ones, actually say to us that we're ahead of the curve. And I didn't say to him, well, you guys should be doing it too, because I'd like to be ahead of the curve. But what he was meaning is we need to learn how to do what you guys are doing. And if you're watching right now, where you're on holiday and you're missing, you're going to come back, it's about the community we've created. That's actually all it's about. So we'll have a look at that. And also, David Seymour's treaty principle bill is emboldening the worst kind of racists in New Zealand. This was a conversation that was had on the working group, and I think we might start there.
The next point is we're going to Seymour. What's Seymour getting out of this? Luxon likes to tell us that Seymour's, there's been a compromise. He's not getting his referendum, but he's getting his bill and it's going to have its day in court. Seymour has won completely on this one. 6 months of a select committee.
Right.
Getting the bill in the public domain in this way gives him the opportunity to stomp up and down the country, stirring up racism. And I know, and we've had this debate before, but that is exactly okay. But let me finish.
I apologise. I think on the last week's show for calling somebody an anti-Semite when my blood pressure got the better of me. I was wrong to make that statement. You do not have a window into somebody else's soul. We've had this discussion with you before. It is a lazy and...
He does seem a little bit more on edge about these accusations than perhaps he once was. I wonder what that's all about.
It's always difficult when it hits close to home.
Yeah.
Seen the racism he stirs up. I've seen it.
It gets sent to me.
Is the Māori...
That is utterly despicable to accuse somebody of racism.
Let me share something with you.
So we'll come back to you.
As a Māori in the room, I feel I feel downtrodden, I feel suppressed, I feel hurt. I honestly do feel that a pack of racists are coming for me and my people. For what? For some political outcome? So, yeah, the feeling, I'm sorry, is real. I do feel that there is a significant racist element to this discussion, and I know this because when you have a look at the people that comment on things on social media, in community groups and chats, it's just incredible. It's like a typhoon of hatred has been loose in this country by one man. Who then walks away from the grenade he's thrown in there and said, oh, no, I just want to debate. Well, actually, that debate is seeing people call other people the worst of names. And not only online, but in person, in workplaces, at parties, in bars, on streets, in supermarkets. This is what is going on as a result of this debate, and the very real fact that we're having this discussion.
Yes.
And I'm surrounded by well-meaning, lovely human beings who happen to be Pākehā. As the Māori in the room, I'm telling you, I am hurt, and that is a fact.
And is that a justification to silence the debate? Well, hold on.
We're not talking about silence. The debate isn't silence. You can't silence a debate in this country.
How have I, as a Māori, attempted to silence this debate in this country that has been going on for decades?
Because you are saying that David Seymour is stirring up racism.
He is
by having
it's
that
a
issue.
Fact. He is.
It's actually on some level quite a gracious thing that he's saying, because he's actually not calling David Seymour a racist. He's saying
he's stirring it up.
He's stirring up racists. And Damien Grant seems particularly nervous about accusations of racism at the moment. But what Matt's actually saying is the vernacular, the things that David Seymour is talking about is stirring up racists. He may or may not think David Seymour is. I don't know. But he's saying it's being stirred up. And then he's giving the evidence, which is his personal experience, that he is seeing racists and hearing from them. And this is where perhaps there is some a word that may offend some people, but it's real life. Certainly for Matt Tukaki, and maybe many other Māori Pacifica people around the country at the moment, who from people who are feeling emboldened by this quote unquote debate.
Creating an operating environment, Damien, where people think that it's okay now to come out of the dark corners and call me a nigger. And that is a fact. People have called me that word, and I hate to say that word, but that is what I get called. Now, that makes me cry.
Simon, hasn't the left... Simon had another point.
Well, I was just going to say that if we go back to the treaty,
yes,
the treaty is a contract.
Yep.
The treaty is a legal document. It is a founding legal document in this country, and it is essentially a contract. And the contract isn't among all New Zealanders. The contract is between the Crown and Māori, their representatives being the rangatira.
I thought it was the chiefs. But no, that's a big difference. And you go back and you read.
I feel it's at all this and coming on.
Well, that was one of the issue in the Lands case. The issue was this a contract between the chiefs, the iwis, or was it a contract between the races, a treaty between the races? They are different concepts, Simon. The distinction, I think, is important.
Simon, hasn't the left...
No, Simon, you want to continue that point.
You might have to think about the meaning of rangatira, but... it is a contract between the signatories, and as a contract between the signatories, if there is a demand for the nation...
Can I just say, not to interrupt, just want to put this out there. I love Simon Wilson. He's lovely.
I would listen to that man read a phone book.
Oh, I just love what he's about to say. I know what's coming. Some of you do. I love Simon Wilson. I would bear his children, were it possible.
Between the signatories, if there is a demand for the nation as a whole thinking, are we going to rethink our founding documents? Are we going to do this process? You don't start with stirring up the racist. You start with the signatories to the document and their descendants actually having a properly formalised discussion. If the Crown thinks that we should reform the Treaty of Waitangi, the Crown needs to be talking to iwi, to the leaders of iwi, about what that might mean. But I don't think the Crown does think that, so we shouldn't be having this discussion in the way we are having.
Let me read this fact to you. This is something that has caused me a lot of angst in the last 24 hours. It's from somebody online who says, hey, iwi, if you want to save your dying language, you can pay for it and do yourselves and do it yourselves. It's not up to the taxpayers. It has zero value. This is the sort of individual in our country that David Seymour and his ilk are stirring up. Sadly, it is the same sort of ilk that have been hiding in the dark corners of our lounge rooms across the country for some years now. And also, the rubbishing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on for a long time. And so, you know, what value is this creating to a country that's trying to project itself forward as a great nation, as Christopher Luxon might call it? We're not a great nation. We're on the cusp of looking like a pack of heathen idiots.
All right.
So, I love Simon Wilson. I love it because it's true. I don't love it because we've said it as well. I love it because it's true. We've used the example, I've got a contract with my bank. The neighbour doesn't get a chance to speak into my contract with my bank. And that's been the example we've been giving here all year about this quote unquote referendum, is that there are two signatories to this document. There is Māori and there is the Crown. I'm sorry, Mr. Seymour, but no, not everybody who arrives in the country gets to participate in that contract by deciding what's what. And it's exactly right. And we've echoed that here as well. If you want to have this conversation, and remember, even Chloe says this conversation can be had, but she always says, but you don't approach it with a binary outcome. So these conversations can happen, but to have these conversations, you speak to the signatories. The Crown needs to approach Māori, or maybe Māori wants to approach the Crown and go, look, we've got this agreement, guys. We've got this deal that's going on. Should we have a look at it together? No, not the latest person who's moved here from Greenland. They're not going to have a say in our contract, because our contract is between us two. I mean, they can be the beneficiaries of it by living here and, you know, the way we set it up, but they don't get to jump in and say, this is how this contract should be. I've been in New Zealand for 2 minutes and I don't really know your culture. Hey, welcome back, whānau. Looking forward to catching up with you on Monday as we go back to being live. Just a huge thanks to our patrons, who some of you have been a part of us since 2022. 2023, crumbs, it's a couple of years now. Really appreciate you guys. The patrons are the people. Yes, we've got the store open and stuff, but the patrons are the people who help us do this thing on a monthly basis. When we're doing pre-records like we are right now, and obviously the super chats are down, and even though the store is open, it's obviously down because we're not here every night saying, hey, look at the store, hey, look at this. It's the patrons that help us get through this. So basically the patrons literally enable us to have some time off, which we desperately need. And also pay for a whole bunch of other things as well. I'm going to do some work up in Waitangi. Patrons are some of the people helping to pay and cover some of that work whilst I'm up there for Waitangi Day. If you like what we do, if you're a fan of it and you want to do something more than just share our content, then what you can do is head to patreon.com/Big Hearing News, as it says at the bottom of the screen, and just do what you can do. I mean, like, the most important thing is that we have your eyeballs and your earballs. Is that a thing? But other than that, you know, telling people about us, lots of ways you can be advocates. If one of those ways is also a small financial contribution per month, then patreon.com/Big Hearing News. If it's not going to jump up and down on you. Enjoy the content. Help support us some other way by sharing it around and telling people about us, being our advocates, buying some stickers, sticking them by Parliament, which I've been getting pictures from you guys, sticking those Nicky No Boats ones up by Parliaments. And just keeping on. So patreon.com/Big Hearing News if you want to be a part of that. Thank you for all those who are supporting us, and let's get back to the best ofs. MediaWorks confirms plan to disestablish multiple roles, dozens of staff impacted. MediaWorks has confirmed they plan to disestablish. Now, actually, I think this popped up this evening. Yeah, this is only 7:25 p.m. tonight.
Fresh.
Yeah, this is fresh. Media Insider understands the consultation process will begin this week, and some staff have been given as little as 72 hours to provide feedback. I wonder if that ever actually works. Like, I wonder if ever the management of a place go, oh, that's a good idea. No, we won't make you redundant. Like, I wonder if that ever works anywhere. Or they have to do it because legally they have to. But I just, I wonder. So they've been given 72 hours. One worker told Media Insider the changes put forward for consultation would affect teams throughout the company. It was made clear MediaWorks was losing money. The staffer said it appeared multiple people would, quote, miss out on a job, end quote, following the changes. A MediaWorks spokesperson told the Herald the changes come as the company attempts to, quote, evolve and adapt with the market. Look, this is serious stuff, especially because, you know, a well-funded, certainly news media is imperative in a democracy, right? Which is the truth. But the flip side to this is that they don't know what they're doing in this new marketplace. They don't. They're still running a model based on 1990s radio. MediaWorks people are. They don't know about the new world. You know, they produce stuff that looks like it's digital because it's on the internet only, but they don't know how. They haven't picked up on how to do it internationally. What they're basically doing is radio on the internet. They're not doing an internet/digital product, and this is part of it. This is part of the reason. As part of the process, we're reviewing the structure of some of our functions to ensure we're in the best shape to meet customers' needs now and into the future. The proposals include changes of reporting lines, the disestablishment of some roles and the creation of new roles. If roles are confirmed as disestablished, we will also explore redeploying options in other areas of the business. It's a fantastic business word salad, isn't it? These discussions are confidential and we do not intend to comment publicly while we work through the proposals together. It's understood the rationale for the cuts includes MediaWorks for the second year in a row posting a statutory loss, and that going forward ad spend remains depressed across the market. Not dancing on anyone's grave. It's sad news. It's bad news. You know, media needs to thrive. A well-functioning media is essential in a democracy. But I'll say it again. Overheads too high, don't know how to do new media, still using an old media model, and homie ain't with it. People ain't with it like they used to be. You know, Chewie, we had meetings at MediaWorks. You go in, and we've said this before, their FOIA would cost $250,000. $100,000 to $200,000 just for their FOIA. It's like, this is what do you think? That's a salary for one of these people you're about to disestablish. You know, it's just a yeah. Give us a call, MediaWorks. We'll tell you what to do for a fee. Maybe you can help us pay for our printing equipment. This is not really a topic for news tonight, Chewie, but when I think MediaWorks, I think radio, because that's by and large what they are. And you've been in that world. What are your thoughts?
It's strange. Like when I went into radio, graduated my qualification and went straight into the industry. It was only then that I realized that I was probably about 10, 15 years too late for what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And at that stage, radio especially was transitioning away from having maybe a nationwide brand, but regional hosts.
Yeah.
You know, you had stations out of Christchurch and Hamilton and Dunedin and all of that sort of stuff. And at that stage, they were condensing everything down to a nationwide brand with a host team out of Auckland. Like, it was already condensing down. And that's what they say. They're giving these people more and more salaries because they're representing the brand nationwide. I think they need to go the other way. And I think what we're doing is kind of showing that, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I did when I got out of the industry was I set up almost a micro radio station.
Low power.
You know, it was very much central Dunedin, playing whatever the fuck I wanted to play, and building an audience that way by being hyper local. Is that a solution to MediaWorks? Is it too late? I don't know. But there's people like us producing content and reacting to things very, very quickly. Okay, a big part of what we do, we rely on those news producers, those guys that do have the time to go out and hunt down these stories. And this is why I sort of freak out whenever I see these bigger players having to get out or having to cut down and having to trim down their staff that chase down these stories.
Yeah.
Is we can't carry that water And if there's less people hunting these things down, then all I can see is these corporations and these politicians and people that need to be scared that there's eyes on them. That's the thing that keeps them honest, are now less scared. They can hide more from us.
100%.
And for everyone that is rubbing their hands with glee and going, oh, well, they're woke anyway because they don't agree with me. They're not seeing the big picture. It's something we should all be concerned about.
And you're right. I mean, I think about Paula Penfold and those people who are still doing stuff with stuff and how essential they are. And we're not doing this story tonight, but I've got a bookmark to maybe have a look at. You know, have we heard anything about this story on mainstream media? I've seen Jordan on TikTok do a pretty big expose on one of them. Controversial human rights commissioners weren't recommended by hiring panel. Stephen Rainbow is chief human rights commissioner. Gail Pachicho. I looked up Gail today. She seems pretty solid actually. But Melissa Darby as race relations commissioner. There's some pretty, these two, Melissa Darby and Stephen Rainbow. I think Jordan Rivers, we played it here once, said someone in charge of human rights who doesn't believe all people should have human rights from his positions on Palestine, that sort of stuff. But this is if you had, let's just be silly, if you had spare investigative journalists lying around, they'd be on this in a heartbeat. But because there's not enough to go around already and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, that story hasn't really come out well enough yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I saw the outcry on social media when those two were appointed.
Yeah, social media.
A laundry list of like, well, this is why people are concerned about Stephen Rainbow. He's not an ally of the trans community. And he's had these concerning things he said about Israel and stuff like that. And it's taken this long for someone to sort of pick it up and run with it and run down some of these leads. And that's the thing, when there's just, there isn't people chasing down these stories.
Yep. Now
you're going to lose the capacity for it.
Now add that perspective to the government. People aren't chasing down those sorts of stories. Of course, they're not chasing down other stories. Talking last night about why is Labour such a small profile at the moment, perhaps, and wonder if one of the reasons is there ain't enough reporters left to be covering everything. So they have to take the top 2% of stories, and that's mostly going to be government stories. I mean, I think the government's always going to get more press, but that could be a part of the reason.
And then you have to factor in the commercial sensibilities of like, well, the stories we want to run have to be the ones that are going to generate clicks. Now, we mentioned Paula Penfold. We've had her on the show with her excellent Fire and the Fury investigation into the parliamentary occupations and stuff like that. She's done phenomenal long format work on Chinese influence in New Zealand and a couple of other stories. But these are not things that you just go out and get a couple of quotes, smash it out in a week, 500 words or 1,500 words or whatever. She is doing long format investigative journalism that does not pay off, like in a commercial sense. You know, you hear someone working on something for 3-4 months, and then it's going to generate clicks and ad spend for let's say maybe a week of eyeballs. Like the math doesn't math on that. And that's what we get if we have just a solely commercial focus on this sort of stuff. This is why the Public Interest Journalism Fund was established as a recognition of this work is important and cannot be left just to market forces. Because when it comes down to that, we'll just have the front page of stuff going, here's 15 cute cat gifs. That's going to generate the clicks.
Welcome back, team. Hope you're enjoying the best of. Reminder, we're back here again live from Monday of next week. Looking forward to getting back to it. Really important heads up about the store at the moment. A couple of things to know. It is open, bhnshop.nz. It is open, but what we're probably going to do is we're probably going to take down perhaps the Chewies, the Nikki No Boats and the BHNs in the lead up to Waitangi Day for a couple of reasons. One is I run the store. I pretty much either I or one of my family members pretty much packs up everything. We print all the shirts, we fold them, we take them to the post shop, and I'm going away for 2 weeks on honeymoon. So I will be out of here by about the 25th of January. We're talking about. Now that means I can't really leave the store open for others to monitor because they don't have the access. So what it means is the buffer in particular, I'm thinking that people are going to want for Waitangi Day. And if you do want a buffer, there are limited numbers there. As you can see, the green, is that green? No, that's rust. There are some green 3XLs left, but the rust 3XLs have all gone. There's the rust one there, of course, which I think is my favorite. Although I might make myself a green one. I haven't got one yet. Which means basically kind of after the 25th of January, you may not be able to get buffer gear. And I'm guessing buffer gear for Waitangi Day could be quite important for some people, as about the idea that we're talking about what it is. Same to be said for the hoodies. You can see, look, pinks have all gone. Maroons, I think there might only be one of, and it's in 3XL. There are greens though, or maybe there's only green larges as well. So the numbers are limited, and the store's likely coming down once I go on honeymoon because we won't be able to service the store. So what I'm saying is you need to get in now. You need to get in now and get your gear if you want. The other items are much of the same. Everything's still available as I record this, but at some stage before the 25th, we'll be taking some of these down and putting them back up again once I get back from honeymoon, but that'll be about it. So long-winded, I'm sorry. And it's a terrible way to do a clip that's going to play 4 times this week or 5 times this week because you'll remember it clearly. But bighnshop.nz if you want to get some merch. And even though we're in pre-record mode, I'm still in Dunedin, we're still here, and we will still send out gear. So if you want it, especially the buffer gear for Waitangi Day, then order it today. bhnshop.nz. John Key did an interview with Samantha Hayes today. Actually, I don't know if it's today. It was released today. And I'm a bit confused by it because it's 19 minutes long and there's some shorter clips around, but it must be an hour interview, but they haven't released it all yet because she starts the conversation by saying, let's start by talking about American election. And that's all they talk about in the 19 minutes. There's nothing else. So it must be more. Okay, because I've looked around today and all I could find was a bunch of, even on their YouTube channel, like a 19-minute clips was the length of it. So, all right, that's all we've got for tonight anyway. Yeah, let's have a look at his views because obviously, you know, I met John Key several times. I interviewed him several times. He does come across as someone who is fiscally conservative and sort of socially liberal, probably socially centrist. But man, listening to this part of this conversation, all I hear is Republican talking points with no thought whatsoever again and again and again. Let's have a listen to the conversation around who's going to win the US election.
Who do you think will win the US election?
Yeah, look, I think it's tricky. I mean, it's blindingly obvious to say that Kamala Harris has changed the narrative in terms of momentum, has gone back a bit more towards the Democrats, and I don't think that was the case prior to that. Having said that, you know, I'm not so sure. I think Trump can actually win it, and I think there's sort of 2 reasons. One, I think America's very divided, but the economy will still be a big issue, and Donald Trump polls well on that.
Now, this is something to be aware of. I haven't got it to show you. Not anymore. Because I listen to a lot of American commentators, and at the moment, many polls are, for the first time, putting the Democrat, which is Harris, equal to or slightly above Trump. Historically, the Republicans, just like the National Party, have seemed to be able to own this narrative incorrectly, which I'll show you before the end of this chat, but has owned it. But at the moment, polls are actually saying Trump's not the trusted source now. It's much, much, much more 50-50 in many polls.
Secondly, it's not like New Zealand where every vote counts, far from it. It's only really those swing states of Pennsylvania, you know, Wisconsin, Georgia, those kind of places. And then thirdly, I think, putting it sort of bluntly, Donald Trump isn't everyone's cup of tea, that's for sure. But some people might vote for him but not want to tell a pollster they're voting for him. So I think you could see the 2016 effect where he's doing better than actually what you see in the polls.
Yeah, I want to clear this up again. The polls in America in 2016 were basically right because they were all nationwide and they said Hillary will win by 3%. She got 3 million more votes than Trump did. So those polls were actually right, but everyone looks at those polls and goes, well, it said Hillary would win. No, they were all nationwide polls that said nationally Clinton was ahead by 3%. And She got 3 million more votes. He got the presidency, which is why now you see a lot more polling based in the swing states. It wasn't like that in 2016. It's far, far more like that right now. So this whole thing about the polling was out in 2016 is not actually the case. It might not have been perfect, but it's not like what people try to sell you as. Like it was so wrong because they were nationwide polls, the popular vote polls, and for that it was accurate-ish. Chewie wasn't so far off to be so terrible. We'll keep going with this. So, history of polling, that's what I've written down. That was that bit there. We'll keep seeing what he's got to say.
That's right. That's what we saw with Hillary Clinton, wasn't it? Everybody thought she was going to win, but
no, it's not what we saw in the polls.
Was ahead. Yeah, I find that really interesting. So when it was Trump versus Biden, do you think Trump would definitely have won in that scenario?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like at 98%.
Yes.
98%. Yeah. Now that it's Trump versus Harris, what kind of percentage
Well,
do you put it at now?
I still got him to get over the line, actually. Although, I could easily be wrong, but I think it's 55-45. He wins it. I mean, it's not straightforward. Which
is not reflected anywhere in the polling, by the way. Nowhere in the polling, anywhere from anyone, does he have a 10-point lead on her. I know he's talking about percentage-wise, but that's what that equates to, a 10-point lead. Nowhere, anywhere.
Because it is so hard. Like all of those swing states seem to be in the margin of error. We've still got quite a lot of days to go. I mean, Hillary Clinton ran a really bad ground game. She never went to those swing states at the very end. Kamala Harris won't make that mistake again. Her running mate comes from one of those swing states. So it's not as simple, but nevertheless, anyway, I think it'll be too close to call for quite a while. But if Donald Trump,
he's still got that thing, that thing. He always did. As he talks, he's still got it.
Can wrestle the debate back onto the economy, I think he wins. I think if it's on all these other issues, he potentially loses. But I've still got him ahead in my brain.
You still think that he's going to win?
Yeah.
Who do you think should win?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question because I think on both sides, I mean, I'm centre-right, unashamedly centre-right, have always voted, centre-right my entire life. You'd have to say that some of the policies that you see from the Republican Party under Donald Trump are a long, long way from what I believe in. So, for instance, I'm economically very conservative, balance the budget, lower taxes, all of those things, market-based solutions, but I'm socially very liberal. They are very conservative. I mean,
we didn't really see that when you were Prime Minister. We heard you say it. We didn't really see it. I mean, he is more liberal when it comes to, social issues, but I would never call him socially liberal. Socially centrist, maybe.
Positions on abortion and on a huge range of other issues. So America is very different. I mean, we're a secular society in New Zealand. We believe that church should be out of the governing of our country. If they don't say God bless America, and if they didn't believe in God, they probably couldn't even get elected. It's just a very different system.
There you go. So there's part one, Chewie. It's a very different system. Trump's going to win because he'll win on the economy, and the polls were wrong in 2016, even though nationally they were kind of right. I got a couple more clips to play, but you go for it, sir.
I didn't realise this morning when I saw this that how much I'd been waiting for a ponytail enthusiast's take on the US elections.
Asking you shall receive.
Dude lives in Hawaii. Like he's golfed with Obama. Like he calls himself centre right. I don't know why he doesn't support the Democrats. Because by our measure of government, the Democrats are centre right.
Yeah.
Like he's parroting lines that Kamala Harris is radical left, economically radical left, just to the right of a Marxist. And that's not based on anything but Fox News talking points and MAGA talking points. And this man will echo them.
Well, I've got my favorite thing to do is to dive into the numbers. I'm going to feed you tonight, baby birds. I've got numbers. Because we're going to go back then to the conversation, because I'll show you the next part, because he's still going on about Trump being better than the economy. This is only about 55 seconds, but let's have a look.
I think he's better for the economy because
does
I think
that make him the better choice?
Well,
completely.
Looking at it from one perspective, which I think he's better from an economic point of view. But the only thing I'd say is that, I spent a lot of time with Barack Obama, obviously, to try and get TPP across the line, and we did. And the very first thing that Donald Trump did was rip up the free trade agreement.
He's about to confirm that Trump would be terrible for New Zealand. Yet they're still like, yeah, I think he's going to win, but Key's about to say that.
Between New Zealand and basically America. So from that perspective, I don't know how great, necessarily that is. I also think that New Zealand is a little country. We benefit when we hold hands with all the countries around the world. So we do well out of things like the United Nations or any sort of grouping, APEC, East Asian Summit. Donald Trump is driving very much an America first, an America more isolationist kind of view, actually. It's quite different, actually. It's a very different foreign policy than we've ever seen. So that probably doesn't help New Zealand as much. But on balance, I think he's probably better for the economy.
So, no good for us. No, we're screwed. No, it's not good for New Zealand. But, he's better for the economy. I've got one more clip to play and then I'm going to get in some numbers. But do you want to share that? That's still just Trump better for the economy. You got anything you want to share specifically about that, or should we just get to the last one?
History hat on. We've never seen America first before. Yes, we fucking have. It was post World War II. It went into the 30s. And that particular slogan was used by American fascists.
Right.
There is no way that the person that put that out there, that Donald Trump should use America first, did not know that. So yes, we have seen an isolationist America before. We ended up with World War II.
Yeah, just clarity. You said after World War II, then you said it went into 30s. You mean after World War One? Just the
after World War One, okay, America went very isolationist.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to play this last bit. I can see people getting angry already in the chat that we played John Key, but this is really important to get to the end of it.
Sorry, look at that pause, chat.
You like that?
Look at it.
You ready? Maybe that'll be the thumbnail for this clip.
Look, his eyes are going in two different directions.
We'll do that.
Fucking chameleon.
I'm just going to play this. It's only just over a minute, and then I'm going to get to, because you know what? One of the things we do like to do is actually kind of give you guys information that you want to use. We hear this so much. Republicans are better for the economy. New Zealand, the right is better for the economy. National is the party of business. Well, we're going to look at that in some detail after this clip with a little bit of research.
Then his argument would be that I'm going to create an economy which is going to create more jobs and going to be more...
So Trump's argument.
The Democrats are saying that they're going to create more jobs, that they'll lift the standard of living, that they'll lift wages.
Yeah, I think to be fair to Donald Trump...
no.
Hang on, can I just pause you there? Yeah, why?
We're not
why do we need to be fair to Donald Trump? No.
Not on this show.
No, let's not do that.
I think the evidence shows that when he was president, he did cut a lot of bureaucracy, he did support a lot of private sector. There was quite a lot of job growth. So the problem with...
What?
Yes, that's the quote that made me go, straight away. And we will get back to that. Hold your fire. We'll get back.
All of these things is they're always in isolation, and it's like looking at numbers in New Zealand when COVID took place, or say when the GFC was there or something. You can't take things out in isolation. So my main point would really be, look, I'm a core believer in centre-right politics. So I believe that if you have individuals and companies being able to have an appropriately managed but nevertheless greater presence with less bureaucracy, less regulation, less red tape, less taxes, I think people do invest, take risks and create jobs. So that'll be his argument about why it'll be better for those workers. And his argument is, well, the countries I'm targeting aren't playing fair and they're not treating you fairly, and the reason you're losing your job is because they're
it's because I've threatened to put literally a 200% tariff on John Deere if they leave America.
Doing things that we don't agree with. So I kind of understand it. Just the question is, what is campaign rhetoric and what is reality?
Mark Cuban made a very good point about what Key just said there. What is campaign rhetoric and what is reality? Mark Cuban made a very good point talking about why he was going to support Harris over Trump. And one of the points he made was, Harris explains her position and then that's it. Donald Trump bloviates out word salad, and other people then have to come in and explain to the media what he was saying. And I just thought that's such a good observation. You know, whether it's JD Vance or whether it's one of his surrogates going on Fox or whatever, he will just go with this word salad of ridiculousness. Then others will explain what it meant. Whereas Harris is all self-contained and she explains it all herself, which I actually thought was quite a good thing. Right, Chewie, let's get into this, right? I had a bit of pushback around Twitter today when I put some of those quotes up. And one of the things that was being said was this thing that John Key just said, and I'll read it out for you. I wrote it down for the quote. This is talking of Trump's last tenure. Quote, "There was quite a lot of job growth." Now, I was going to say anecdotally, I heard otherwise. From commentators and stuff, I heard otherwise. So I thought, let's get up to it and let's have a look what the actual data is. So here's some data for you guys. Since the Great Depression, the economy has fared better under Democratic presidents than Republican presidents. This fact holds true regardless of the economic measure used. Economic growth, employment, job creation, income, and productivity have all been stronger under Democratic presidents. From 1933 to 2020, this goes through to 2021, so don't get all of Joe Biden, but get a little bit of in some of the facts and figures. The economy grew at an average of 4.6% per year under Democratic presidents, or nearly double the 2.4% under Republican presidents. There were 14 different presidents over this time, 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans. Democratic presidents constantly ranked higher in economic job growth and creation. Of the 7 presidents with the highest annual economic growth rate, 5 are Democrats. Conversely, 5 of the 7 presidents with the lowest economic growth rate are Republicans. Of the 7 presidents with the highest annual job creation, 6 are Democrats. On the flip side, 6 of the 7 presidents with the lowest job creation are Republicans. Most recently, President Biden has overseen a 5.7% real GDP growth, the highest annual economic growth since 1984, and the creation of 6.6 million jobs, the most in a single year in recorded history. Now, I got online today and I put some of this stuff out there, and people are like, oh yeah, but you know, COVID, Trump COVID. And I'm like, well, okay, let's first check this out. You guys want to cite things like fuel prices, like inflation, like the southern border as being successes under Trump. You don't go, well, they were only a success because of COVID, which is the case. No one was driving, no one was immigrating, and no one was trying to cross the border. So if you're not going to take away the credit from him from those because of COVID, then you don't get the right to blame COVID when the facts and figures don't quite line up. But again, Chewie, beyond that, this data is not necessarily about Trump and Biden. This is about, since 1933, all Democrats and all Republicans. So in other words, this doesn't give us just a look at the COVID year. This gives us a look at the Great Depression. This gives us a look at the 1987 stock market crash. This gets us to take a look at the 1970s fuel shortages. We can look at the 2007-2008 global financial crisis. This is all of it. Lots of presidents have had massive issues, and of them, Donald Trump is the worst by a measurable amount. So this is the growth of the economy, and you can see up, and this is Joe Biden. They managed to squeeze 2021 in there, but I wanted to show you a couple of things in particular. GDP has grown faster, and look, I know it's sometimes confusing, but remember their colors are opposite us. So blue is left, red is right. I'd sometimes confuse this, but GDP has grown faster under Democratic presidents. Annual GDP growth rate from the start of each presidential term, 1953 to 2020. Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Republican, Republican. So there you go. And Trump right down the bottom on 1%. Remember George W. Bush? He had a war, and at the end of his term, a global financial crisis. He had two things to deal with in that way. What about we have a look at jobs? Remember, John Key, there was quite a lot of job growth under Trump. There was quite a lot of job growth. Even if I block these names on the left, can you see which one you think might be Trump? Maybe. Because John Key said quite a lot of job growth. His words. So we're measuring by his standard of his words. As you can see, Johnson, Carter, Clinton, Kennedy, all up the top. Couple of Republicans and then Obama. By far and away, jobs have grown faster under Democrats and Republicans. Well, you see, there's one little anomaly, Chewie. Since the 1950s, there's only been one president in that whole time. Vietnam War, 87 stock market crash, 2008 financial global crisis.
That's because he's a rogue. He's not a politician. He's not constrained by the rules of politics. He goes his own way. He goes the other way.
Trump is the only president, at least since this research shows, since the 1950s, to have a negative job growth. John Key, there was quite a lot of job growth. Literally incorrect. Literally the opposite of that. There was no job growth. In fact, it was the opposite of that. There's one other paragraph I think I want to read you that I think I highlighted from memory. Yep, here he goes. Democratic administrators turn around weak economies left by their Republican predecessors. That's the heading of this. Historically, Democratic presidents have inherited weak economies from their Republican predecessors and have responded with policies that jump-started economic growth and improved economic well-being. George W. Bush, his administration policies, directly contributed to the Great Recession, which reduced earnings for a generation of workers, led to years of widespread unemployment, and caused an unprecedented decline in wealth. President Bush, and he still had more jobs and did better than Donald Trump, with all of that against him. President Bush left office with just 1.4 million jobs added across his presidency and an unemployment rate of 7.8, nearly double what it was when he entered office. After inheriting a sputtering economy, President Obama spearheaded the longest expansion under a single president in US history. During 76 consecutive months, 15 million jobs were created. The unemployment rate was cut from 10% near the height of the Great Recession in October 2009 to 4.7% in January 2017. Two things. John Key, there was quite a lot of job growth under Donald Trump. Only president in recent memory to have a negative job growth. Haven't got the numbers here for Obama, but for Biden, slip of the tongue, Freudian, for Biden, but Biden's created more jobs than that if you add all the Republican presidents together, Biden has created more jobs than all of them combined. So John Key wrong, and please people, let's not let these guys on the right tell us that they're the fucking parties of business and they're the parties of the economy, because they're just not. Chewie.
It's scary how much that's true in our system as well. This base of myth that national are great for the economy. We are going full steam ahead into a cascading effect of austerity and businesses clamping down. Smithfield Freezing Works announced at the end of last week that they're closing.
That. Yep.
That is going to gut Timaru. I saw a story today about, I think it was Gisborne, the amount of small businesses that are under the hammer because their pulp and paper mill, the forestry is closed.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really clear here that they may be really good for business. It's not small business.
No.
And it's not the workers that work for those businesses. It is big business. Those guys that have enough money to ride out the chaos and capitalize on the turbulence that creates, they do very well.
Yeah, and then they can,
some of them
take all the customers from those small ones who have closed down.
Yeah, some of them run off to another colonized country, buy a second home in Hawaii, spend their time learning to fly a helicopter, because there's nothing more important that you could put your money to. And then we get him to weigh in on an election that he clearly doesn't understand. Like, there are quotes from Key that he would vote for South American dictators because they are on the right. You would have to hold guns to Key and his wife and kids' heads to get him to even consider voting for someone that described themselves as being on the left. He is not a fair analysis of this. He is always going to pump for the right-wing business dude. And to say that Trump is good for an economy, this is a man that bankrupted 2 casinos.
3.
There's a third one.
Because he's so good. He's so good at business. He's so good at business that he started up 3 casinos at the same time in the same city, and they cannibalized one another. That was his genius plan. He's the only man who can start a business where the house always wins and the house loses. He's the only man who's ever done that.
About his wealth creation, how he's done it, like that sort of thing, and they go from what he started with from his racist fuckhead of a father, and it was just basically like, oh, if you put this in a conservative share fund, you would make more money than Trump has in his lifetime. Like, he is not a good businessman. He doesn't understand the economy. He doesn't understand tariffs, for a start. And for Key to go, oh yeah, this would be great for the economy, it will be horrific for New Zealand. He's already said that our products will be copping a 26% tariff. So who's he pulling for?
Yeah.
Like, does Key just not give a fuck about us anymore because the flag stayed the same? Is that why it is?
He talked in that interview as well about spending a lot of his time. He's on a board somewhere in America, and he's still got his house in Hawaii and that kind of stuff. But this is, I know, I'm not
being sued for insider trading. Did he mention that?
I don't think he did in that part, at least. I just wanted to say this one more time, because sometimes you can form an argument, right? Even if you're wrong, you can form an argument. But he said there was quite a lot of jobs. There was quite a lot of job growth, quote unquote, under Trump. And that's actually a metric we can completely measure. And it's really important to show that there's no opinion here, right? This is not like 1 + 1 is 4. Yeah, it can be 4, it can be 3, it can be 5. This is a tangible, measurable thing, he said. And he is not correct. Now, I don't know what Samantha Hayes' mandate for that interview was, but I mean, like, I didn't have these numbers to hand when I heard him say that, but I knew that Trump was the only president in recent history to have a negative job growth. Obviously, Samantha Hayes didn't know that, or it was set up as a bit of a puff piece and she was never going to say it, but no pushback, no nothing at all, you know. And I know you went to broadcasting school with a Chewie, so you probably got a soft spot for her, but when people get this access and they don't push back when they should push back, it's frustrating. Measurable, tangible. Trump had a negative job growth rating.
It does strike me as a puff interview.
Maybe.
Like, I mean, he's a private citizen now. You can't really turn the screws to him. But yeah,
but you can call it out when he's wrong. I mean, he's wrong.
Yeah,
you can call that out. As you know, Whānau, it's been a pretty rough few days for a lot of people in Dunedin. I want to go through some of the things that have happened in the last wee while, and we're tying this into the government's response to this. Because Lux, oh look, Chewie's taking this top off. It's getting serious now, folks. Oh, revving up. Oh, because Luxon was in town today, and we want to talk about the national-led government's response to the floods and also to Dunedin Hospital. And I know this is very Dunedin-centric for a lot of you guys outside of it, but this is also emblematic of how they're operating in so many areas. Need we say more? Ferries? You know, so this is not just about Dunedin. This is about how national is leading this government. So we finished up a show here on Thursday night, and not long after that Thursday night, in fact, 12:39 in the AM Friday morning, Mayor Jules Radich had declared a state of emergency for Dunedin in response to heavy rainfall and flooding in the area. So basically, people would wake up on Friday morning and understand that Dunedin was in a state of emergency. Now, that state of emergency finished, I think, on Sunday morning, right? So what I found particularly interesting about how this government operates and runs the country is about 19 hours after that, the response from our Prime Minister was to tell the whole of the country that he was off to the Kiwi Indian Hall of Fame Awards in a PR exercise that I think couldn't have had any less sense around it, Chewie. So there's the Prime Minister. We're in a state of emergency in one part of our country. People are literally trying to bail out their houses. And one of the responses from this Prime Minister on this day was to, for some reason, stand like that, but to escalate and echo to the nation that that's what was on his mind whilst Dunedin was going through what it was going through. We're going to watch a clip at the moment when Mark Mitchell states in this clip, quote, "That's why we always turn up early." Mark Mitchell's going to say that in a clip we're about to see from the stand-up. That's why we always turn up early. Well, on Friday, when the state of emergency was declared, the Prime Minister was at a gala dinner that evening. He didn't turn up. In fact, he turned up about 24 hours after the state of emergency finished. Let me play you this very short clip. It's only a minute long, and this is the Prime Minister being asked about something that was mooted by the council here. The council here mooted the idea we need a plan for the flooded, the areas of Dunedin that flood. We think the plan is to buy these houses out. Now, this is not based on this weekend's events. This is based on 2015's events and beyond. And last year, this government said, "Nah, not going to do that. We're not going to buy out those We're not going to buy out those houses." And then we've got another flood. One of the difficulties is, I should have said last year, I think it was put in last year, it was decided this year. One of the difficulties is, of course, these guys didn't even know about that. And of course, if it's a difficult question, Luxon tends to run away and hand it off to Mark Mitchell. Listen out for that word, that sentence. "We always turn up early," he's going to say.
Prime Minister, why did your government reject Dunedin City Council's proposal for funding to buy out homes in low-lying areas, in areas that have flooded here in South Dunedin?
I'll let Mark talk to that with respect to impacted properties and where we're working our way through that.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, we haven't had any requests at all in terms of dealing with those issues.
Because we're not talking about this weekend.
11 properties that have been red-stickered, primarily because of the slips. So it's not safe for people to be in them. Obviously, the council now will be doing work around whether or not there can be mitigation done to allow those people to return. But look, the reason why we're here and we always turn up early is because we want to partner with local government to make sure that people are looked after.
Sorry, to clarify.
Did you get that? Did you hear it, folks? Why we always turn up early? Should we play it again?
But look, the reason why we're here and we always turn up early is because we want to partner with...
I'll just say again. State of emergency, Luxon Gala. 24 hours after the state of emergency was finished, Luxon turns up to Dunedin for his photo op.
With local government to make sure that people are looked after.
Sorry, to clarify, this was before this flooding. Since the 2015 floods, last year Dunedin City Council put a proposal to government that this year was rejected, asking for money to buy out houses in low-lying areas.
I'd have to go back and check on the detail on that.
So, Chewie, last year the DCC said, as part of our plan, part of our climate mitigation plan, part of the issues we have is we need to, these houses that are flood prone, we need to buy those up and central government needs to be involved. Central government said no, those houses are flooded again this time around. That's my first part of the conversation around flooding, Chewie. You're welcome to jump in now.
Yeah, so I want to link this back to something that they've been very keen to buzzword the shit out of when we talk about climate change, and that's climate mitigation.
Yeah.
Like we can't stop the climate from changing. We have to adapt. Now, for a lot of places around New Zealand, and you can look at Auckland, you can look at the East Coast, or all the places that were afflicted when that cyclone came through. Lots of people have built homes in stupid places. South Dunedin down here is built on an old tidal mudflat. There's houses that are built in valleys over old streams and all of that sort of stuff. And water will always remember where it used to be. Tough. Yeah. That's where your house is. So when we're talking about something like climate mitigation, what you are talking about is buying people's homes and giving them money to go and get a home somewhere else out of a danger zone. Here in Dunedin, South Dunedin is an incredibly dense housing area, and it's mainly older or poorer people.
Certainly poorer.
So that's why I was able to afford a house down there. So this is the sort of thing that this government that it seems real keen on climate mitigation should be well across.
Yep.
Well across. You know, there's examples that's been talked about up in Auckland for houses that flooded very badly when their storm came through. And I also want to talking about Auckland's example, right? That wasn't this government at the wheel at that time. That was Labor. And you can go and look for yourself at the difference in reaction between these two governments. You can look at their crisis response. Look how different it is. When people say it doesn't matter who I vote for, they're all the fucking same. The proof is in the pudding here.
Yeah.
Luxon went to a gala. Okay, we're not privy to the discussions that may have happened between central government and local government. What do you need? Do you need us to come down? That sort of thing. But the optics,
yeah,
putting on your suit and going to a gala event while Dunedin buckles down and wonder what the morning's going to bring, Luxon hasn't got the political instincts.
It's tone deaf.
He never has. He never has. And when the chance comes to show us what he's made of, he does. Nice tux, bro.
Yeah, and just the messaging. I read it again. We always turn up early. No, you don't. And 24 hours after the state of emergency has finished, do you remember there was the floods in Auckland? And he was out there helping in the middle of the night. Great, Luxon, because you know why? That was just down the road. I realised the other day, someone said to me, do you know there is one minister in this government from the South Island? There is one. What does that tell us about the South Island and this government? Yeah, exactly. One minister. And to move on to somewhat of the next subject, the tone deaf thing, right? Not really talking about this time, but it leads into the conversation around Dunedin Hospital. Of the tone deafness of the Prime Minister standing in a private hospital while talking about and having an interview about Dunedin Hospital, Dunedin's public hospital, and how the funding was going to be lowered. We're not going to necessarily get into this right now, but I know you mentioned that to me as well, Chewie. Standing in a private hospital in the private health sector, doing a stand-up with the press about cutting funding for a public hospital, Chewie. Tone deaf? I've got quite a bit on this, but you can get in there first. You look like you're chomping.
Oh, look, absolutely. When I saw that story at the end of last week, that he was talking about Dunedin Hospital, he's finally talking about the massive protests that we had here at Dunedin about Luxon going back on the words that he said all the way back 2 months ago about us getting the full noise hospital, and even further back from that, there was an election promise and all of that sort of stuff, that he would dare speak about it while he's opening a new wing in a private hospital.
Yeah.
We have spoken about this before. Luxon has a terrible sense for optics. He has a terrible sense for political capital. And more to the point, he's either surrounded by people that don't see it as well and don't go, hey, boss, maybe we should do this media stand-up, I don't know, in the car park of the Burger King outside.
Yeah.
They either don't see it either, or he doesn't listen to them. Either way, it's not good.
Or there is a third option, is that they see it, but they don't say anything to him because he's the boss. He may have surrounded himself with yes men. I mean, it must be one of the hardest or worst jobs in the country to be on his maybe PR team or maybe his social media team. They can make him do silly little TikToks where he sticks his tongue out like a 13-year-old girl, but actually thinking about the optics of something and the tone-deaf nature of what you're telling people in Dunedin. And if we're talking about ferries, people in the whole country, it'd be like going to a private yacht boat seller and talking about how we're going to not fund the ferries as much as we would. I mean, that'd be tone-deaf. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
The other part of this is this weekend there's been a flurry of articles about, hey, maybe we need to do public-private partnerships with healthcare. Hey, maybe we let the private sector do this, that, and the other thing. Maybe we just don't have the money to do this. Maybe the government's not the best person, people to do health. It's been a flurry of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Mountain Tui on various platforms mentioned this. Shane Reddy's up to his eyeballs in his own private healthcare.
Right.
The Health New Zealand Commissioner, Levy, has written many, many articles on how they should privatise healthcare. Christopher Luxon, as of 2 weeks ago, now has $500,000 of liquid assets because he sold those houses.
Yep.
Is he waiting for a new investment opportunity?
Well, and just remember, the reason he was able to do that with those houses is they changed the bright line test from whatever it was, 10 years to 4 years. So if you haven't seen the appearance of a conflict of interest before, or a conflict of interest that is the leader of a party changing a law that then enables you months later to get $500,000 tax-free. I mean, how can that be anything but? How can that be anything but? Let's not move too much away from the hospital, say, because we're still here.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the whole thing. Is that it is optics. It is that 1-2 punch from central government for Dunedin. Fuck you, you're not getting a hospital. And yeah, we don't know what your council's asked for. It's in a pile of papers somewhere. None of us have read it.
But they declined it.
Yeah,
didn't read it, but declined it.
I'm the Prime Minister. The buck stops with me. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Mark, do you know? I don't know either. I had a cheese roll down. It's great. It's just you make the comparison. There's been this mention in the chat. Chewie, would you rather have the PM turn up and take away from the response? No, because that's not the question. Like I said, we've got examples of crisis management from previous governments, not even the last government, from other governments, of leaders turning up. Like when Chippy turned up in Auckland when they had the cyclone.
Yeah. Do you know what this is, though? Sorry, I'm interrupting. But I can tell you what this is. I know exactly where this question's come from. It's come from someone following American politics. Because what's just happened with the hurricane in America is that there was a lot of people criticizing Biden and Kamala Harris for not turning up, but they got told to stay away because it's a different vibe. Secret Service comes in. It actually makes a drain on local police officers. And that's where this is coming from, because the PM doesn't turn up and take away from the response in New Zealand. The PM turns up and actually adds to the focus on the thing. We're not America. You don't all of a sudden have to lose half your police force because the Prime Minister's turning up. I guarantee you this question here below us right now has come from someone who's heard this conversation about the right blaming Kamala Harris and Biden for not turning up, and then Biden and Kamala Harris explaining, and also all the governors and sheriffs saying they said they'd come when we were ready. That's where this conversation's come from. And you know why? Because who's ever heard this question ever before when there's been a New Zealand emergency? Never once. But it's just happened 2 weeks ago in America.
I am not even suggesting that what we wanted was Christopher Luxon to fucking turn up in the middle of a storm and start filling in sandbags, although that would have been amazing political capital for him if he decided to. My point here is that post of his could have been, I'm keeping a really close eye on what's going on down in Dunedin. Seems to be a really concerning situation, and whatever local government needs from central government, we're here. Not, we're off to the ball. You know, yeah. It's that tonal shift. And the point that I want to make from that is Christopher Luxon is bad at this. He is bad at being a politician. He is bad at seeing when there is an opportunity for political capital. There is an opportunity to be seen as a true leader, and every time he gets one of those opportunities, he misses it and flubs it super, super hard. I appreciate that might be hard to hear. Maybe you voted for him. But let's be honest, there's a better way that he could have done this.
Very, very few people voted for Christopher Luxon. If anything, they voted against Labour. But let me just say, you've just reminded me of something. I've got something to show you before. I'll do it at the end of this bit now. And if you don't laugh, I'm never going to do another show again. And it's to do with Christopher Luxon. So we'll get to it as long as I can open up my messages. Right, let's just keep going because this is about the actual Dunedin hospital as well. So this is from the stand-up. I'm not going to the TVNZ or the Stuff News stories. I'm showing you footage from the stand-up because it wasn't all shown. The hospital protesters were out in force today, and they were wanting Mr. Luxon to keep their promise. Now, I'm getting really frustrated with mainstream media, and I'll explain why in a minute. So this is the Prime Minister now speaking to media in Dunedin about the protesters, basically turning up and say, what are you doing with our hospital? We want our hospital.
You met with some protesters at the airport and other places around town today. What do you say to them, and what do you make of their, obviously they're calling for something to be done in regards to keeping promise of building the hospital as is.
Yeah.
What have you taken from that?
Look, I fully understand the frustration. It's also frustrating for a government that's been in power for 10 months inheriting this mess as well. But we are going to build a great hospital here in Dunedin, but it's going to be at 1.9 billion, not approaching 3 billion. And as a result, that's the work that will go on from here. This is a project that started at 1.2, went to 1.6. We've put another 300 million in to bring it up to 1.9. We're not building the most expensive hospital in the Southern Hemisphere at 3 billion New Zealand dollars. We're going to build a great hospital for $2 billion. So there's an urgent review, as you understand, with a couple of options that are going to be considered. And the reason is it's important that we do deliver within our budgets. We've had a series and inherited a series of cost creeps and scope creeps, whether it's been on ferries, whether it's been on school buildings, and now we see in hospitals as well. And we want to be able to do that because we also have other regional hospitals. We have regional hospitals across the country of smaller scope and scale that actually rely on that infrastructure money, whether you're in Whangarei or Palmerston North or Nelson or Tauranga for that matter.
Okay, so I want to address quite a few things in this conversation, right? The first is, when your number one priority is budget above all else, you're going to build a shit product. Because when he says we don't need $3 billion, it was like there are 500 health experts that have said this is what you need. If it adds up to $3 billion, then that's actually exactly what's needed to build that hospital. So coming out of the back, I mean, yes, budget has to be a part of it. But when budget is number one, you're always going to lose. You're always going to lose when building infrastructure. Here's the second thing, and I'm ropeable with the mainstream media. I've said this before, and when I say this, it's not like I'm not going, no, poor us. It's actually you guys get the access, and you fucking watch, I know, and you don't do your jobs. Okay, Mr. Luxon, we are not going to build the most expensive hospital in the Southern Hemisphere for $3 billion. One Google search, one fucking Google search. Adelaide's Women's and Children's Hospital, New Zealand, $3.5 billion. Like, I stopped investigating because, Luxon, we're not going to build the Southern Hemisphere's most expensive hospital at $3 billion. One Google search finds another hospital, unless Adelaide's no longer in the Southern Hemisphere, that costs more. Have we heard anyone with access go, excuse me, Mr. Luxon, that's bullshit? Can we address the you've got something brown on your chin because you're talking shit. We can see it. It's on your chin. No one. So then I started to think, why is this guy so determined to focus on the Southern Hemisphere? Let's say he's right, Chewie. Let's say that there wasn't one Google search which proved him wrong. Let's say he's right. Why would the Southern Hemisphere matter? Why? Is it because possibly countries that are similar sizes to us spend far more than $3 billion? Let's have a look at Ireland, for example. Ireland is almost exactly the same population as New Zealand. Almost exactly the same. In fact, when one person leaves here, one person leaves there. It's almost exactly the same. Ireland, the hospital they're building at the moment, 4.4 billion New Zealand dollars, Chewie. 4.4 billion New Zealand dollars. So it's not the most expensive hospital built in the Southern Hemisphere. And looking at other countries of a similar size to us, they're spending more. Now, what happened today, Chewie, is the National Party bootlickers came out and started going, Dunedin, 135,000 people, Adelaide, 1.3 million. No. That's not what Luxon said. He didn't say we're not going to build the most expensive hospital in the Southern Hemisphere per capita. He didn't say that, so you can't play that game. He said, carte blanche, we are not going to build the most expensive hospital in the Southern Hemisphere. Those are the words. That is the metric he has put out there. That is the metric we are measuring him by, other than Chewie. Even if it was the most expensive hospital build in the Southern Hemisphere, if it's what the region needs for the next 100 years, it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a deviation away from the point to try and say to all his voters, look how these people want us to waste your tax dollars. By the way, landlords, here's $3 billion. By the way, top 1%, here's $14 billion of tax breaks. I'm fucking furious about this whole thing, and I've got more to go, so you better go now.
Yeah, look, what we saw on his visit today is definitely the new talking point. We're not spending $3 billion, a number that has heavily been pushed back on. Yeah. And heavily disproved because they've padded it with a whole bunch of shit that's not in the scope of the new hospital anyway. And we're not going to spend the most of a hospital in the Southern Hemisphere, which you have just disproved for them there as well.
One Google search.
You're going to get an excellent hospital for $2 billion. Now,
that's not for the purpose. That clinicians haven't said this is what we need. Clinicians have told us what we need. This is what's fit for purpose. Oh, okay. You know what, Chewie? I was going to buy a car, and the car that I needed was to go up a really steep hill, and I needed a four-wheel drive. Unfortunately, the four-wheel drive car was $3,000 more than the budget I had. So I bought a two-wheel car. So I got a good two-wheel car, but guess what? It didn't fucking climb up the hill. It wasn't fit for purpose. Sorry.
So this is the question that I want the media to ask. Whenever that gets trotted out, 1.9 billion, 2 billion, whatever he's going to say, you can get a great hospital for $2 billion. I want to know, is it going to have more beds than we have now? Is it going to have more operating theatres than we have now? Is it going to have the scanners that we were promised? Is it going to be built all at once? Or is this going to be a phased development which will only push up the price?
Yep.
These are the details we need to know. Is this still going to be a premier teaching hospital to train potentially generations of future doctors? Is this a hospital that is going to be able to service the lower half of the South Island, or in an emergency, the entirety of the South Island? Is that the planning that we're doing? Or are we just looking at the checkbook and going, fuck, we've already borrowed for landlords. We don't want to dip into the kitty again. This is a manufactured crisis because these guys want to privatize by bit by bit. They're not going to do it all at once. They're just going to open the door a little bit. The door a little bit. These guys have a conflict of interest. They are heavily compromised when it comes to this because of the things that...
Oh my gosh, Chewie just got Thanos'd away. What on earth happened there? Unless I've been Thanos'd away. Oh, here he comes. Was it Thanos? It's Thanos.
Yeah, they're heavily compromised. They're invested in the thing that they are supposed to be doing. They do not have us in mind. They have their portfolios and they have their legacies in mind.
Okay, we're gonna keep going. That was very funny. There's two more clips. I'm going to play them back to back, Chewie, or else we'll never get to the end of this. Another clip here from the stand-up where he's basically been asked, "Can you deliver what you promised?" And another talking point, right? And we've done this so much with the inner city rail link for Auckland and stuff. When they say nothing happened in the previous term. Really? Okay, we'll have a look at that. So here's another question, and it's all about delivering what you promised. Hospital.
Promised 35,000 people turned out to protest the cuts to the Dunedin hospital. Are you confident you can deliver what was promised in a $1.9 billion package?
Yeah, look, I get the frustration, how frustrated you think I feel. I've been leading a government for 10 months. The previous administration had...
And the bloody media keeps asking me these kinds of questions. But that's not how it's supposed to work. I was a CEO. No one ever questioned me.
The previous administration had 6 years to get this done and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Consequence. So the bottom line is we are going to build things in this country. You've seen us announce our fast-track legislation yesterday. We are over it. We need to get things moving. We need to get things built. We need to get things started. So for $1.9 billion, we're going to build a good hospital down here in the south. Don't worry about that. But you do not...
We are worried about that. And actually, every taxpayer should be worried about that, you building a not fit for purpose one, and then there having to be upgrades and add-ons in 10 years from now. We're worried about it.
We do not need $3 billion and a massive cost overrun, which means we can't then support other infrastructure that we desperately need in healthcare across other regional centres.
So we don't need $3 billion. Again, if 500 clinicians have turned on to what we need, and if what we need by the experts reaches $3 billion, then we do. Sorry, just because you want to have a budget and we don't need that for a hospital. We don't need it for a hospital, but for this hospital, if that's what the clinicians have said and that's the total, then yes, we do. Okay, nothing's happened. I'm really tired about this from this talking point government as well. Nothing's happened, right? And like we've said before, when you're building a house, the first year of the section, it looks like nothing's happening. But what's happening in the background is surveys are doing their thing, architects are doing their thing, you're picking and you're choosing. There's lots of work going on contributing to the build. Nothing happened. Like, really? Well, 2015, the Ministry of Health appointed Southern Partnership Group to lead hospital redevelopment. It's under national. It released business cases for two options, both estimated to be between 1.2 to 1.4 billion. 2017, so this is, if it was mid-year, it would have been national. So it was national Labor changeover, political buy-in. 2018, Labor, site selection. 2019, Labor, drilling and digging. 2020, Labor, demolition works begin. 2021, contracts were negotiated for the next planning and stages design. 2020, you can see it goes on and on and on. So maybe there wasn't a wall erected. But to say nothing happened, it's the same as the inner city rail. Nothing happened. No, actually, lots of things happened. Just because a metre of line hadn't been laid, there was lots of other things happening in that time period to get to the end where then we could start laying lines of rail or building walls of a hospital. And again, media, stop it. If he says it, nothing happened. So what about the drilling and digging in 2019? What? That's something, isn't it? Didn't they need to do that before they built a wall? Yes, so things were happening. Last clip, Chewie, and then you can jump back in. And you actually said something really interesting, which you talked about how the delay will increase costs. It's the exact question that comes up here, and Luxon gets a bit pissy. And he almost goes, well, why didn't you talk to Labor about that? Almost. He stops himself, but you can tell it's in his brain. Have a listen.
Why does the government suggest retrofitting the hospital then repeated studies have shown it be more expensive and take more time to do?
Yeah, look, again, well, all we're doing is we've had a project blowout from 1.2 billion to 3 billion, approaching $3 billion, and as a result, we're doing a very quick, taking urgent advice about whether we do staged at the old facility or scale back at the new facility, new site. We'll look at both those options. We'll come back with a decision very. Sorry.
Wouldn't delay increase the costs?
Sorry, say that again. I missed the question.
Wouldn't delay increase the costs?
Wouldn't delay increase the prices is the question.
Well, again, we're going to move through that process very quickly, but I think if you felt that way so strongly, maybe over the last 6 years, we could have seen a lot more progress. So this is a government that's going to get things done.
He nearly said it. If you felt so strongly over the last 6 years, you could have asked Labor about it, but he pulled himself back. Didn't quite go there.
We're going to build a great hospital. We've got to do it for 1.9 billion. It'll be then one of the most expensive hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere.
That's it? One of? Oh, okay. What? Did he get a word in his ear between the two? I don't think so.
But we're determined to build a good hospital here, period. But we have to do it within the budget. We cannot be in the situation that we've inherited where we have a $600 million project for ferries that blows out to $3 billion. We have 450 school buildings and projects that end up being underfunded by billions of dollars. We have a hospital here that's blowing out to almost approaching $3 billion. We'll get it right sized. We'll get it sorted. We'll get good value, and we'll make sure we build a good hospital.
So there you go. Luxon gets a bit pissy about the delaying of costs, but he's completely right. Do you think if we went back to Hyundai today and said, can we have those boats again, it'd be the same price? Of course not. Of course it would not be the same price. There you go, Joey. I rest my case. Your chance to chew it up now.
I saw the figure bandied around that the report that these guys have commissioned cost the taxpayer over $3,500 per page. Like,
wow.
all of this stuff has costs, and this is one of the things. Like, this is why projects always get scaled down, right? They come through. What do you need? Cool. Where are we going to do it? This is what it looks like. I don't know if we're going to get away with that. We'll scale it back, scale it back, scale it back, scale it back. Like, these guys, they probably want to cut the remit on a new hospital. Maybe if we scale it back, it'll get done quicker. But the fact is that they're going back over their own words and their own planning. Retrofitting the old hospital was ruled out really early because it is leaking. The building is at the end of its useful life 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I read a story today of they were operating on a dude and brown water started coming out of the roof, and they had to basically throw a sheet over him and move him to another theatre halfway through operating on him. What the fuck are we doing? He wants to play games of, no, we're going to blame the other guys, and Dunedin's being greedy. If they get everything that they want, then Nelson doesn't get a hospital. They want to play us off against each other. Nobody has ever complained, wow, this hospital cost a lot of money, but God, it's lasted us decades and decades and decades. My son was born there and my grandkid was born there, and it was been so good. My friend's wife gave birth there. Across the hall there was a room that was barricaded off for asbestos contamination. For fuck's sake, has he stepped foot in that hospital? Has he gone to talk to the people that have to work in it? I would say no. Like 35,000 people marched for this, and he just seems to want to brush it away and go, oh, I'm just as frustrated as you guys. No, you fucking aren't.
No,
you don't live here. You won't use this hospital. You're not on a waiting list for anything. You don't have a friend or family member in here. You're not as frustrated as the rest of us. Don't piss in my cornflakes and tell me it's milk. It's fucking bullshit.
Hey, one other thing, Chewie. He said in that clip as well, 1.9 will still be one of the most expensive hospitals. I've done the research today, right? And like I said, I stopped once the first result I found deflated his most expensive. But I did notice and quickly read through one. There's currently $9 billion being spent in South Africa on, I think it's 5 hospitals. It's like a conglomeration of 5 different hospitals, 9 billion. And I mean, I know that doesn't average 1.9 billion per, but they're putting $9 billion into multiple hospitals as we speak because they needed to be upgraded. So, he hasn't done the numbers. He doesn't know. What
do you think provides more to the people of this country? A brand new hospital that will suit an entire region of this country for decades to come, that will train teachers and nurses for all of the other hospitals for decades to come.
Yep.
Or we can pad landlords' profit and loss statements. Because that was good enough to borrow billions of dollars for. So that's not something that had to be downscaled. That was an election promise. And they can't go back on their promises. The hospital as planned was an election promise. And they have gone back on that, but they didn't go back on tax cuts for landlords. We'll keep banging this fucking drum until everybody loses their fucking mind, because it is the most direct A to B comparison that anybody can make here. Why did we borrow money to give it to landlords as a tax cut? Why? What did that produce for this country?
Hey, kia ora again. Welcome back, whānau. Thanks for watching the best of. Remember, live shows start again Monday the 13th. As another reminder as well, the merch store is currently open. Like I said earlier, we're probably going to have to take the store down after I head off on honeymoon, just because there'll be no one to service it. So get in there now if you want to get your especially your buffer merch before Waitangi Day. That is, of course, bhnshop.nz. But speaking of shop, speaking of merch, speaking of money, huge thanks to all of our patrons. In the last 7 days, a big thanks to George Terry, to Christian, to Rocket Rihari, to Mark White, to Joey Parr, and to Ruth O'Grady. Ruth O'Grady, top of the morning to you, who have all become patrons, and also Rebecca Hawkins. We won't miss you out, Rebecca. Rebecca Hawkins also in the last 7 days. Also a big shout out to Rachel Hannon. Rachel Hannon's been a patron for a wee while, but upped their patronage, changed levels. 2025 is going to be a different year for patrons. We are going to service you guys better. I understand up until this point you've mostly just been wanting to support us with a few bucks here and there, but we are going to be looking at providing more content for patrons alone, because you guys are the guys who keep this thing going day to day. Merch is great, but the patrons are the guys who help us out day to day. Thanks for joining us again tonight. We will see you tomorrow night, unless this plays on Friday. Then you'll see a live show on Monday for another best of for the other ones. And stay safe. We'll see you super soon. Hooroo.
Settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together, for better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in, as many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin.